Okay, welcome back to the Investigative Journal on this May 25th, 2015 day on our calendar. I'm your host, Greg Anthony, and you're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com. You can catch my show every evening from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. That's on FirstAmendmentRadio.com. Also, if you want to get all the replays, if you want to go to my website at arcticbeacon.com, most people know it as the Investigative Journal, because I put a lot of my radio shows on there from, back around 2004, 2005, and every year on this date, I do a Memorial Day show, and we do it from the aspect of America, the warring nation. And, it's so ridiculous. Today, as I sit here every day on Memorial Day, I wonder, the more you preach to stop war, the more wars there are. And Americans, folks, they like their history in black and white. Although they don't like any hidden agendas or conspiracies of power, especially on these hypocritical holidays that we call, for example, this one Memorial Day. Well, this Memorial Day is a good example of what I'm talking about. Oh, the flags are out, the apple pies are being eaten. Oh, there's a lot of parties on the beaches. Weekend-long booze trips. Oh, they all take center stage, don't they? Then, of course, there will be the brief 60-second moment where everyone in unison puts their hand on their hearts and remembers the fallen soldiers who died for freedom. Now, what about all the innocent people that have died for freedom? Millions. For true freedom. That's what they wanted. They weren't fighting a war that was orchestrated. Now, I'm not saying that the soldiers knew it, but that's what was going on. And if more people knew it, there wouldn't be any soldiers, because they wouldn't fight for these bastards, these elite, who create and orchestrate wars going back hundreds of years. And I've told you where all the seat of power comes from, Rome. But it doesn't appear that many people listen. Nothing, I mean nothing, can stand in the way of this day of memorial, of freedom. Nothing can stand in its way, even truth. The truth, by the way, folks, is not what this country is all about. It's about fantasy every step of the way. And I've got a few things to present to you today that highlight that. Now, I can't help, like everyone else, to think on this holiday, or call it a hypocrite day, to think of my friends who died in Vietnam. Yeah, that was the war that I was eligible to be killed in the name of freedom. Now, I think of my friends, my high school mates, Greg Casper, Jimmy Freeze, who I played football with. Oh, they went in on the buddy system. They weren't the greatest of students. They weren't getting college deferments. At that time when they went in, there was the draft. I wasn't old enough then. I was a couple of years younger than Greg and Jimmy. And when I came, they created a lottery. Everybody had a number. And if your number was a certain level, you were in. Luckily, mine fell under. I told that story. It takes too long to tell. My number fell under. I never had to make the decision. Fell over the limit, I mean. Well, they went in on the buddy system in the Marines, as they called it. The buddy system? I'll tell you, buddy, what happened to them. Both of them came home in a buddy box, laid to rest at a Chicago cemetery. And I can't help but think of my really good friend, Joe Arns. Joey enlisted in the Army. He spent one term in Nam and died years ago in his early 40s from Agent Orange. His life was cut short. And he came back and told us the truth about Vietnam. Oh, as I think of them, I could go on and on for days about how all these wars are orchestrated. I've done that on my show over the years. I've showed you. I've taken each war that you know about, starting with the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, and all the other ones, and showed you how the Jesuits used their tactics how our leaders are basically puppets working for this one world government. Every war orchestrated to pit one group against another. These aren't accidental wars that, Muslims, the basic Muslim person doesn't hate the Christian, and the Christian not the Muslims. It's these elites who orchestrate terrorism. And I've showed you how that works. Oh, I could go on this day for hours, for days, for years. But, I can just show you that just a host of, all these are just hosts of Vatican creations to bring about a one world government and a one world religion. But I'm not going to go any farther, as I know it would interfere too much with this Memorial Day protocol. Too much truth on one of our country's biggest days of fantasy cannot be tolerated. Yes, I know the men died. I understand that. But do you realize they never had to die? None of them had to die at war. They could have all gone by the way of natural causes, just like the rest of us honoring them today. That's really the sad part of this holiday. It didn't have to be that way, and it doesn't have to be that way in the future. How, you say? Well, I'm going to leave that up to you. I'm going to leave it up to you to ponder while you're partying the rest of the day, or listening to America the Beautiful at a baseball game. But what I will do, and this might take just a little bit of work for you, is I'll leave 2 of my old radio shows. When I was on GCN, that's that controlled opposition station where Alex Jones is. And I used to work right across from him. My show was right near, I think it was right after his. And I learned how they control the internet and don't give you the full truth. Now, I interviewed back then, and I interviewed Lieutenant Colonel Dan Marvin. Now, Dan became a Christian, told us the truth about the Vietnam War and the truth about the country he loved so dearly. He was a Green Beret assassin. He believed in God and country until he went over there. And when you read his story, when you read how the Pentagon came after him for his book that I recommend you read, The Expendable Elite, and I also recommend you look into the lawsuit that he won before he passed away a few years ago. Cost him buku bucks. But the Pentagon sued him over this book, and he won a federal case. And boy, you will see the deceit in action there. And on my website at arcticbeacon.com, you can go to that article, which I have. It's called Remember Lieutenant Colonel Dan Marvin on Memorial Day 2015. And I left you 2 shows, one from September 14th, 2006, and one from September 18th, 2006. And both those shows, and one of my first shows with him, I did hours and hours of shows, and I'll tell you what, I'm honored to be a friend. I became a friend of his before he died. And I was honored to learn really what happened in the Vietnam War, and that war echoes what happens in all of them. It's what's going on today. We're in another war. But go to those 2. Go to that article on my website. Go to arcticbeacon.com. Take a little time to listen to Dan. He'd like that. And then see if next year you have so much fun celebrating this holiday. This holiday shouldn't even be here. What are we celebrating? We're celebrating nothing but war. Do you realize that? That's what we're celebrating here. We're celebrating how we love to be a warring nation. And that's what we are. Did you realize this? And I give these statistics out every year. And every year, nobody cares. But America has been at war 93% of the time of our existence. 222 out of 239 years, I hope those years are right, since 1776. I'm just using the official wars. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of a timeline of these wars to prove we're just nothing but a warring nation. That's what we do well. Oh, yes, we love it. Oh, we love to bomb the hell out of everybody for freedom's sake. Do you realize that since World War II, most of the wars, well, most all wars, were instigated. We were the aggressor. We instigated them. And we're a peacetime country? Protecting freedom? You know what we're protecting, folks? A false freedom that you think you have. We have none. This is another one of our owners' ways of controlling us. And this day, we honor those who, they always say fought for freedom. They didn't know. Of course they thought they were fighting for freedom. And of course I can feel their pain. But do you realize that really what they were fighting for is to enslave us all? To help our owners enslave us all in the system today? And don't give me this, black-white thing. I'm tired of it. Whites are just as much of a slave in this country as the blacks. And we're all slaves since the 14th Amendment. Take a look at that. You'll understand what I say. So don't give me this black and white racism. And that's another card they use to get people fighting with each other all the time. Really, we should have a holiday. There shouldn't be a Memorial Day. Because there wouldn't be any really big wars unless these people were in power. The people we put in power that work for the Vatican. Now, since the United States was founded in 1776, we have been at war during 214 out of the 235, or did I misread? The 222 out of the 239 years of existence. In other words, there have only been 21 calendar years in which the U.S. did not wage any war. Now, do you understand why I call ourselves the Roman Legion? Do you understand that? Well, if you look deep enough, you'll see how the Jesuits work, and you'll see the head of the Holy Roman Empire, as they like to call it, is now a Jesuit. Oh boy, are we in deep trouble. But let's put it all into perspective here. Why don't we do that? Oh, you can pick any year since 1776, and there's about a 95% chance that America was involved in some war during that calendar year. Now, I'm going to tell you this. No war, I don't care whether the president's black or white or green or blue, no president truly qualifies as a peacetime president. Oh, they like to tell you that, but instead all U.S. presidents can technically be considered war presidents. The U.S. has never gone a decade without a war. We can't, because we've got to have Memorial Day. The U.S. has never gone a decade without a war. The only time the U.S. went 5 years without a war was 1935 to 1940. That was during that isolationist period of the Great Depression. And I also like to do this. And people say, well, this is boring. Well, you know what? Maybe you'll understand why I say we're a warring nation. We like war. Oh, yes, your leaders love it. They love to kill innocent people. And on this holiday, they are, I'm telling you, these satanic worshipers, the leaders of our country, the leaders in the Vatican, they're all licking their chops over all the blood that's been shed on this day. They're laughing at us. But I told you in 1776, the American Revolutionary War, the Chickamauga Wars, the Second Cherokee War, the Pennamite-Yankee War, that's what's going on in 1776. And I showed you in many of my shows how the Revolutionary War was orchestrated from Rome by a Jesuit general named Lorenzo Ricci. And when you see that side of the story, which is never told, he's kind of one of our founding fathers, a Jesuit priest, yes. Now, in 1777, now we can remember what I said, the Chickamauga Wars, all the Indian Wars, the American Revolutionary War, French fighting German, French fighting English and Americans, all of us fighting. These wars were going on through 1783. Then we had in 1784, The Chickamauga Wars, they were still fighting the Indians. Northwest Indian War in 1785, the Chickamauga Wars were going on forever. All the way through the Northwest Indian War through 1793, 1795. Now, in 1796 and 1797, no major war. What was that? What was going on there? Oh, there's something going on. Probably planning for the next one. Then in about there was these wars going on in 1798, 1799, and 1800. They didn't have a name yet, so we'll just call them quasi-wars. But they were really the first Barbary Wars. That went on from 1801 through 1805. Then in 1807, these are the years, see, most of the years that we didn't have wars were way back before our time. I don't think there's been a time, it was 35 through 40 in our period, where there was no war. So you actually think our country's getting better? Yeah, we're getting better at war. Getting better at killing people, bombing people, especially brown people. We like doing that. Now, we're especially good at that. Oh, this country's great at deception. And there's so many of them. Excuse me. Now, in 1810, U.S. occupies Spanish-held West Florida. Oh, the Spaniards got to get involved. Now, don't you think they had a little connection to Rome? Oh, yeah. In 1811, we had Tecumseh's War. Then 1812, everybody knows that one. The War of 1812. Does anybody really know what that was about? Well, there were a lot of other ones going on. We had the Seminole Wars. We had to get rid of them. The natives were good at killing them off. U.S. occupies Spanish-held Amelia Island and other parts of East Florida. 1813, the War of 1812 is going on still. Why didn't they call it the War of 1813? Well, I guess because it started in 1812. I want to make it think it's only 1 year. Well, they had Tecumseh's War going on. Peoria War now creeps up on us. Creek War. U.S. expands its territory in West Florida. We got to take it all, don't we? Yeah. Kill all the Indians. But we're a great country. We don't on Memorial Day, we remember the dead Indians? Heck no. They were part of the conquest. You know what's so funny? We consider them pagans. We have all these Jesuit priests running around trying to bring them into Christianity when the hell they're not even Christians. Catholic religion is not Christian, and all their leaders are all pagan worshipers to begin with. That's the real irony of the whole thing. So we got the 1812 War, Second Barbary War in 1815, Anti-Piracy War. We're going on with that. Then in 1860, now we got to wipe out the Seminoles. First Seminole War in 1816. Although it was going on in 1813, they're getting ready for it. 1817, got the Anti-Piracy Wars going on. First Seminole War is going on all the way through 1818, and they're probably going on longer. But then we had another one, so we had in 1819, the Yellowstone Expedition. We got whatever that war was, Anti-Piracy War, Yellowstone. That's going on in 1820. We've got to take over that area. And these anti-piracy wars were going on for whatever that, I'd like to look into those, what that really means. One pirate stealing from another, Rome stealing from another, one thief stealing from another thief. Now, 1826, officially no major war. So they got a break to plan the next one. Then we have the 1827 War on RVs, the Winnebago War. You realize you drive your little Winnebago today that it began in 1827, it was a war? Winnebago, people don't know about the Winnebago Indians. They all know. All they think about is the leaky RV they have. Now in 1828, 29 and 30, no major war. Nothing. Fantastic. That's why I want to live there. No major wars. Now, these poor Indians, man. Sac and Fox Indian War then in 31, 1832, the Black Hawk War, the Cherokee Indian War in 1833, the 1834, we got Pawnees, Cherokees, Seminoles. This is going on. Wow. Oh, then, did you know in 1840, and who are the Heatherly Indians? We never heard of them. They're wiping these guys out from 1830. It's going on to 1841. It's 40. It's still going on. Seminoles were tough. U.S. naval forces, then they invade the Fiji Islands. Now, where the hell? Why are we doing that? That's not even close to America, but we invaded Fiji, and of course the Jesuit priests are still there today. When you go to Fiji, it's interesting how there's a lot of Catholics there. It's interesting. I wonder how they got there. And the natives, boy, I knew some native Fijians to get the history of that island. It's amazing. And we started the whole damn thing with the Vatican back in 1840 to kill all those native Fijians. We left a few still. They're around. So we invade Fiji in 1840. Now in 1841, I guess we're getting bored with the Indians, so we had to invade the Makian Island, Gilbert Islands, and Samoa. Oh yeah, there's all these missionaries there too, these Jesuit missionaries. Now, that's interesting. In 1843, did you realize we clashed with the Chinese? Yep, U.S. troops, we invaded the African coast back then, setting up things, setting the world up for us. Now in 1844, we get back, as we're over there fighting. 1844 and 1845, we have the Texas Indian Wars. Now, 1846, the Mexican-American War. We got to fight with our neighbors here. Mexican-American Wars, Texas Indian Wars are still going on. Mexican-American Wars all the way into 1848, 1849. Oh, it just increases a bit. Have the same wars going on with Mexico and Texas and all that, and the KUC War. I don't know what that is. Southwest Indian Wars. Navajos, we've heard of them. We're warring with them. Skirmish between 1st Cavalry and the Indians. Oh, really? A skirmish? We call it a bloodbath, where we kill innocent babies that are red and women. Why don't we call it what it is? But do we remember those people on Memorial Day? Hell no. Because these people were fighting for freedom. How about we have been fighting for conquest on behalf of the Vatican as their Roman legion to basically Catholicize the whole world into one world stupid religion that's pagan to begin with. And that's what really the truth is. But nobody wants to hear that on this day. No, we were fighting for freedom, weren't we? Oh, sure we were. And these Indian wars, I'm getting so tired, we're in 18, these are going on, they keep adding. And I'll start again when I come back. I thought this would be quick. I got a lot of things I want to play for you today, a couple of things, but I guess there's so many wars that it's going to take up all my time just to tell you what they are. Now, let me do this fast. We'll get through, look at this. 1855, 1856, there's so many people were fighting. Fiji Islands were in the Rogue River Wars, the Puget Sound War, the Winnis Expedition, the Klickitat War, the Apache Wars, the Navajo, the Southwest. What else time do we have to do anything? Seminole Wars. And this goes on. The Indian War, Utah War, conflict now we're in Nicaragua. You believe that? 1857. We can't leave anybody alone, can we? And do you think all this would have happened if there wasn't somebody planning all these things? Who do you think wanted all this property? You look back at history, Rome was behind a lot of this garbage. Most of it, all of it. And the Jesuits are instrumental in getting all the information and doing the dirty work. And if you look at their long history, you'll see in their history lives on today because every president goes to kiss the Pope's ring. They sit under a picture of Ignatius Loyola, founder of the Jesuit Legion. Okay, we'll come back. I think you're getting the idea here. Maybe I'll skip forward through the 1850s, get us into World War I. We don't have to remind you of those. We know about those, don't we? But yes, you're celebrating freedom today, folks. So take your minute out now. While I do my break to sing, the American national anthem. Go ahead.
Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net. The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening. Gold and silver is tremendously undervalued. Global demand vastly exceeds mine supply by more than 60% annually. There is little in the financial world more certain than a coming explosion in the prices of gold and silver. The U.S. dollar continues to lose value and respect as the world's reserve currency. Our nation faces challenges on many fronts, and a day doesn't pass without another economist bringing forth warnings of impending economic calamity. There has never been a better time than right now to acquire physical gold and silver. Discount Gold and Silver Trading was founded on the principles of truth and honesty. We believe in providing a quality product, quality service, and most importantly, competitive pricing. We provide all forms of precious metals, including American gold, silver, platinum, and rare investment and circulated coins. Silver bars, rounds, and 90% silver bags are on hand for the silver investor. Gold self-directed IRAs are available. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, that's 1-800-375-4188.
Okay, we're back for the second half hour on the Investigative Journal, and boy, I'll tell you, I'm gonna stop there in the 1850s on going over all those wars. You know, something like I said, we're a warring nation, and on this Memorial Day, you know, wouldn't it be nice if we didn't have to celebrate Memorial Day? Wouldn't it be nice? And wouldn't it be nice? Why don't we have a day where we commemorate all the people that were killed in the Inquisition, all the Christians that were killed, since we're a Christian country? I always wondered about that, why we don't do that. You know, and why don't we, you know, in a Christian country, it seems logical that we should, you know, represent all the Christians that have been killed by supposedly our Christian leaders, and supposedly the Vatican, who calls themselves Christians, but they're behind killing them all. Now, you figured that one out. And you know what I got to put up with today? Of course, there's a couple baseball games on, and they love to mix in the remembrance of our soldiers and baseball. But they never get to the truth about really what we talk about in this show. And like I said, you can't tell the truth on this day. It's against Memorial Day protocol. So what I want to do is every year we seem to get into more and more wars, don't we? Yes. And this one coming up right now is the big one. Oh, they're billing this one as the big one, the big war against this terrorist organization, by the way, that the West has created for you, so that they can control you even more. They can control you in the name of freedom, in the name of, oh, we have to protect you from these random terrorist acts that, of course, we created. Now, it isn't a coincidence that ISIS, this group, is named ISIS. Now, why would they name this group ISIS? Well, they're letting you know that they have created them, because Isis is a Greek goddess that is worshipped by the people in power. Your government leaders in Washington tell you, because they have the obelisk right there in Washington, D.C., a symbol for the simple-minded, that they worship the goddess Isis. Because if you check out what the obelisk represents, you will find out that's what it is. Go back to some of my older shows. Now you hop across the North Atlantic, and guess what you find in Rome? Right in St. Peter's Square, another obelisk there worshiping Isis. Now, are they worshiping the terrorist group? Well, now they're telling you they created it. They worship the Greek goddess. That's why it's there. And there's one, of course, in London, D.C. So it's all right there for you, isn't it? Oh, yes, right there for you. And isn't it a crazy notion that I'm going to bring up right now? How far do these deceptions go? How far do they really go? Now, most Christians will tell me now, years ago when I believed, just because I've been told my whole life that the earth is round and it's moving at 64,000 miles an hour. Yes. And we're spinning at 1,000 miles an hour at the equator. And how come I'm not moving? I always wondered about that. Shouldn't I be moving and jostled around? But, Christians told me, well, Greg, the reason you're not is the earth is full. The earth is stationary. And I said, oh boy, how can anybody believe that? Well, I believe it. I believe the earth is stationary now. It's amazing what it can do if you start thinking. If you start using your head and not being brainwashed by everything they tell you. Remember, don't believe a word your government and NASA says. It's a big lie. Ever hear of CGI? Computer-generated images? That's what they can do. And guess what? Then I asked Christians, well, what shape is the earth? And then they told me, well, it's round. I said, well, okay. How do you know? And then they gave me some Bible verses, and then I started checking out the Bible, and I find that, it's not really conclusive that it's round. There are many things you could think of that it's flat in the Bible as well. So I started thinking, well, is the earth really round? How do I know? I've never been up there. How many people have gone up in space and actually looked at it? I bet you nobody that's listening to my show, and I bet you 99.9% of the people in this world have not done that, and they rely on who? NASA. Guess what? NASA is nothing more than a CGI computer-generated imagery company that's showing you all these pictures and all of this crazy science. So I started researching it, and it's fun to realize that maybe my senses have been right, because I remember when I was scuba diving one time. I decided to look out at the horizon going off La Jolla Shores in Southern California. And it amazed me. I said, how could this be round when everything is flat at my eye level? And it's amazing when you start looking at that and when you start really researching that. No matter how high you go, if you're up in an airplane and they don't have those windows that make everything look round, it's flat because the horizon goes up to your eye level. On a spherical Earth, it would never be that way. Well, we've went over some of that stuff. But what I'm getting is, how far is the deception? How far have they really gone? And have the Jesuits been behind it? Well, I think they have. And I'm going to let this guy by the name of Matthew Boylan, who is talking about the flat earth, tell you about what he thinks. Now, here's another thing I want to mention. There's this whole big discussion on controlled opposition, on people that are not honest and they're there because they want to screw up with the truth. And, I have to tell you this. Everybody claims that everybody else is a controlled opposition when they're trying to get at the, not everybody, but you don't know. Here's what I think about it. You have to remember, even if these people, this guy here, I don't know him, even if they're controlled opposition people, they serve a purpose. You have to be wise enough to sort out the truth from the fiction and point that out to people. They have a job to do for their master. If they know, and if they're just uninformed, well, it is your job to lead them down the right path, even though, like the analogy, you can't make a horse drink. So anyway, let's listen to Matthew Boylan, whether some call him controlled opposition or, everybody calls somebody something. But he serves a purpose, and I think there's a lot of truth in what he says, and whether he is or not, it doesn't matter to me. Now let's listen to what he has to say, because there are some really great things about the shape of this planet. And do you really know what it is?
I'm in the hills, I don't have Wi-Fi, I'm trying to finish up work, because I gotta live. So, saying the earth is flat, not having Wi-Fi, and then having to respond to people, and having to drive 20 miles just to go and respond to somebody who's starting to think the sky is some sort of glass dome. There's a force of energy at the top, which Tesla tapped into with his experiments, which HAARP taps into in Alaska. And what it is basically you have air, or what we call ether, the medium between things, form. Get right back down to Aristotle here, because it isn't a globe, and heliocentrism is a weird solar worship hoax cult where people got sacrificed under obelisks by the same people who said it was a ball and drank their blood. This happened 2,000 years ago. People had slaves. Sir Isaac Newton was a slave owner. He had slaves. Benjamin Franklin, these people had slaves. Okay? The principles of their world, or what they think the world should be, are the principles we have today. And these people had slaves. The people who are the scholars, the giants of physics, had slaves. Right? I'm no fucking slave. And if you're a black man thinking this is a color issue with World War III or like the U.S., you're just playing into the whole divide and conquer, the old Jesuit tactique, which they're doing with the Jews and the Muslims.
Okay, what I have to do right here is I'm looking at Netanyahu and the Israeli leaders right now, and I'm going to paraphrase what's on the video right here. As Christ's representative, Pope Francis, the first Jesuit, walks off the airplane, and he comes in a military airplane. And how come the Jesuits have all these powerful telescopes? And how come he's meeting off a military airplane, the supposed God on earth, meeting with who I call his papal court Jews? And isn't this interesting that the Knesset is probably in the Jewish people are probably in the same position as we are when it comes to their leaders in Congress and in the Knesset? And wow, isn't it interesting to see all of this unfold right before your very eyes, not knowing what they're doing? Oh, I do. Basically, it's another one of the chess pieces, another one of the world leaders bowing down to the main leader of the New World Order, that man in a white dress. Never trust anybody that wears a dress. A man that wears a dress. And is Judaism being used as a cover by each one of these people? Oh, yes, they sure are. And let me tell you something. I'm going to get back to Matthew Boylan here. Let's listen to what he has to say.
Is from a Catholic priest. Do you know his name? He said the earth was a ball. That's right.
He's showing a picture of the ball.
Nicholas Copernicus was a Jesuit priest. And then you go, well, Big Bang Theory, and the universe started with a Big Bang.
That's science. You know? So it wasn't created by somebody with a concept of like organizing information, every anatomical piece of matter that is interdependent and works so beautifully together, like a tree, like my hand, with 5 fingers, not 6. Just perfect amount of everything. Just enough, not 2 thumbs, 1 thumb, everything, senses. All this information came out of a Big Bang. Everything came out of nothing. Guess what? The Big Bang Theory? It's another Jesuit priest. That's right. You don't even know who came up with the theory. You think it's Einstein. No. It's Georges Lemaitre. The Master in French. George the Master. And he's a Jesuit priest. You know, there's a reason why the Jesuits have the most powerful telescopes to look into space. There's a reason. Because all of science apparently flows from Jesuit priests. They're all part of the theater of war. They're setting the stage for war. And I know, and it seems to me like when it started really, like I called it in 2011, 12, and I called it like way even before that, but I couldn't upload. Watch, they're going to like try to have a war with Russia to distract everybody as people start waking up to deception after deception until they get to the final big one. And just before they could wake up to that one, too late, World War III. So this is a situation. So the second viral video, the second type of viral over YouTube is the splinter cell concept, where the video is now, it's not one video at 20 million, 48 hours. It's like hundreds of videos of the same topic through hundreds of channels. But 5,000 here, 100,000 there, 20,000 here, 30,000 there. So I believe we're now at that level, which, you know, you could control a lot of traffic, like mind traffic with the internet, and you could kind of ideologically sort of engineer what people are going to be distracted or attracted to. But at a certain point, the machine itself is its own monster to the person who created it. And in this sense, it's our monster. But we're in that time frame right now with Netanyahu wanting to fucking bomb Iran, and you got President Obama almost looking like the last 2 years. I'm like, all right, now I'm gonna be black. You know what I mean? Like, I think he's like, I think there's a possibility. I think he does know, because when he kind of like made that little punchline, I was like, you know, about the flat Earth when he was doing his speech.
We don't have time to talk to the flat Earth.
But he stuttered. He stuttered.
They must have been founding members of the Flat Earth Society. They would not have believed that the world was round.
Yeah, I was just blown away when I saw that.
He stuttered, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
In some sort of conversation at the upper level.
Oh, yeah. And then you saw, I think it was somebody else, some other senator or somebody else, he stuttered too. And it's like, either you really think it's idiotic, and you have no problem with the comedic timing on that punchline, or you know something about what the heck is going on. And for me, the body language and the stuttering, oh yeah, he said flat Earth. Okay, programming. Oh yeah, we must laugh at that because that's stupid. And then they laughed. There was a pause because he fucked up his timing. But people are so brainwashed with anything that's flat Earth is obviously you're stupid. Then they caught it because of their conditioning, not because of his delivery. Because he fucked up his delivery. And he fucked up his delivery because there was a lot of pressure on delivering that line.
Yeah.
Because there's been...
It says that line, again, because, you know, that script was made way in advance.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, who what rooms are talking about this? And, you know, it's like they're being proactive in advance. It's like, let's remind people, for no apparent reason,
like bullying.
Answers are crazy.
Yeah. And I don't think Francois Hollande knows in France. I think Sarkozy knows. I don't think Merkel knows in Germany. Like, they have certain people so that the theater looks real, are like working in good intention. So then here enters Merkel and Hollande going to Russia to broker a peace deal, which bought some time. I think bought some time because nobody really wants to go to war. But Putin knows, and Barack Obama knows. But they're playing their role in this whole thing. I don't think William and I don't think Harry knows. But I know Charles and Philip know. And I know the Queen of England knows.
Well, of course.
I know Tony Blair knows. I don't know if Cameron knows. It's fucked up what I'm saying right now, but it's like I'm going on intuition, like from body language, from the way they are, and what we need on the geopolitical stage to make the... You need a few that are out in the dark to make the liars who could be caught lying look real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying, because...
Theater.
Yeah, well, if you let enough people, at the higher levels know, you eliminate them from the equation of accidentally stepping into something they shouldn't be.
Exactly.
Like any politician, every once in a while you get those politicians, like, I think we should look into JFK, and then it's like, all of a sudden it's like, no, dude, you're not talking.
Okay, we'll move forward with Matthew Boylan. And what's interesting about this whole thing is that...
You want me to knock
you know what we want to do here?
Well, I want
This
you
is
to...
my friend Bart Sabrell talking to the
astronauts.
astronauts.
Okay. If you walked on the moon, we're given the opportunity to swear to God that you walked on the moon.
I'm going to give you the opportunity to get the hell knocked out of you, so don't leave me alone.
So why don't you just put the end to the record in the argument, then put your hand on...
This is Neil Armstrong.
Swear to God you walked on the moon.
Mr. Sabrell, knowing you, that's probably comical.
Well, you're talking to the wrong
Edward Buzz Aldrin.
Talk to the administrator in NASA. We're passengers. We're guys going on a flight. I don't hit people, but you're going to be on the deck.
Ed Mitchell.
I appreciate it.
Well, I
Take your stuff and get the fuck out. Why don't you quote me and say it's bullshit?
When the shadows interrupt, I don't give a damn about all that shit.
It's full of shit.
of lunar orbit being falsified.
Being falsified?
Correct. We've got an unedited...
Okay, that was Bart Sabrell interviewing the astronauts and asking them if they went to the moon. Now, why would they be so adamant, one even punching him, if we really did? Folks, a funny thing happened on the way to the moon. We never went. Have a good day, and we'll be back on the Investigative Journal tomorrow.